everyone, welcome back to the LilyGrace Lifestyle Podcast. Today we are talking to Samantha Newman because me and her collaborated on Brand Ed, which we are so excited to launch next month, April of 2025. If you are listening and you are someone either struggling to find your own personal brand or wondering even what a personal brand is, you are in the right place. We are talking to the entrepreneur who is a little nervous to start their own venture or has always wanted to and doesn't know where to start. So without further ado, welcome Samantha. Thank you for coming on the show today. I so appreciate you coming.
Thank you so much. Thanks for such a warm welcome. I am so excited to be here. I have wanted to be on your little podcast since I first heard it.
Love it.
Yeah, I think when we very first met.
I love it. Well, here we are. And the question I always start out with is, what defines your lifestyle?
So it's interesting. When you told me that you were going to ask me this question, my first reaction is like, well, I don't feel like I really have a lifestyle yet. Like, I feel like people just like know me for me. Like I haven't made it a thing yet. But then we started talking, and I really feel like my lifestyle is defined by showing up in person and talking to people in real life. I feel like that's where my brand kind of thrives, in terms of making meaningful interactions. You know, like really intentionally building that and asking people difficult questions or asking people thought-provoking questions that then leads to a more intimate relationship with each person.
I like that. It's kind of like what we do on this show, which is perfect. And we're gonna dive into the behind the scenes of our stories individually and then how we came together very naturally in the industry, and also why we started a course and where that developed from. So to start out, where are you from and what got you into the design world in general?
Yeah, so I'm from New York, just outside the city, Westchester, and I have always wanted to be an interior designer. So I was the weird kid that knew exactly what I wanted to do from the moment that I started school. I always wanted to be, well, actually, I used to say I wanted to be a sewer because I didn't, a sewer, like the drainage system. Oh my gosh. Yes, because I didn't know what a seamstress was. Oh. So yes, there's a little while where I wanted to be a sanitation worker. But pretty immediately, around like 7 or 8 years old, I was really into Polly Pockets. And I had this friend, her name's Devin. Well, I actually don't know her really anymore, but she was super lovely. We were best friends, and we would always go to her house and play Polly Pockets because she had the best Polly Pockets. She had all of this sets. We would dump it out. It was everywhere, okay? And we would design homes because what else do you do with your Polly Pockets? And she wanted to be an interior designer, so then I said I wanted to be an interior designer, and then she was like, you can't be an interior designer because I'm an interior designer and that's copying. But now she's a lawyer. So I won. Yeah, and so I went to SCAD and loved studying interior design there, and then they did a really great job of preparing me for the industry, and when I had the opportunity to join HOK here in Boston, I jumped in and I really haven't looked back.
I love that. And you have such a design eye and such a unique style, and when I walked into your apartment the first time, I was like, oh, this is totally Samantha. I understand your vision, where you come from, your taste and your style, and it's incredible. And I'm so happy to learn more about your Polly Pocket story, and I'm glad you didn't become a sewer.
Me too.
Yeah, so that's a great story, and I similarly knew from a very young age, I was like, I'm going to be an interior designer. Well, at first I wanted to be a teacher, but then I realized I'm not patient enough for that. So I taught my sister in quote-unquote school when she was younger, but then I was like, not all students are as bright as Molly. So I changed that trajectory and became a designer at Wentworth, and here we are, and our paths crossed because I went into sales. At the time I was at Boston Modern Furniture, and you were at HOK, and I heard your name through the rumblings. This young, fresh designers out of school from New York at HOK, and I was like, I need to meet her. And I'm thinking about our first time that we met, and I think it was in your office, and then I followed up to go out to coffee with you.
Yeah,
and this was probably like a year or two ago at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely over a year.
Wow, crazy. So we met on our first coffee date, and I brought you a loom textile journal, which then turned into this beautiful friendship and course, which we'll get into, which is crazy.
I know. It feels like it was yesterday that I even like moved here to Boston.
Literally.
And it's funny, you mentioned this loom textiles book, and we do bring it up in the course.
Yes, we do. So let's talk about the course and why we created it. I feel like a lot of people are trying to figure out their own self-story and how to articulate that to people. In our industry, in design specifically, it is so important to have a personality and lead with your creative eye and your whole vision for who you are, but also the spaces that you're creating for people. But I think in any industry, it can cross over.
Yeah, I really agree. It feels like these days, who you are online and how you show up in person really does translate to your business across the board. And at one time, major brands might have had all that clout, but now it's really about you and what you can bring as an individual to each person.
Yes, and it's really about putting yourself out there. I feel like a lot of people are afraid to. I myself was as well at the very beginning of my journey, and figuring out who you authentically are, it's a struggle. And this course that we created is really for our old selves and our current selves to remind us and formalize the soft skills that they don't teach you in school or your parents don't talk about that has led them to their success. Companies are created with people. Companies are just people. And in order to create an amazing culture and to get to a place where you're selling an amazing product or service, you do have to learn how to sell.
Totally.
And this course is helping you do that.
Yeah, and one of the things that was really important to me when we were making this course is to make sure that we included a lot of psychology research, because how to sell is really appealing to human psychology.
Yes.
It's really understanding someone's psyche, meeting them where they're at, and understanding your psyche and meeting yourself where you're at.
Yeah. And when was the time in your life where you thought branding was so important and prominent? I know you mentioned at the beginning of your career.
Yes. Yeah. So at the beginning of my career, when I met a fellow designer, he turned to me and said, "Oh, you're the new designer from HOK." And I remember in that moment I was like, oh my God, I've made it. Because someone knew me before I actually met them.
Yeah.
My brand had gone outside of me. Other people were talking about me, and that came back around. And in that moment it was just like, oh my God, you've done it. You've succeeded.
Yes, and you were saying that wasn't even quite intentional.
Yeah, it kind of happened on accident, and I was totally shocked. But the more that I think about it, when you do come into a new space, if you're consistently showing up in that space, you're consistently introducing yourself to new people, it does make sense that then that person would turn around and say, oh, you'll never guess who I met here. And that's the goal.
Yeah.
We're encouraging our clients in the course to show up where their clients are at. Figure out, all right, well, if I'm selling to person ABC, I'm going to go network with person ABC. I'm not just going to network with other people like me.
Right.
And, that's basically what you do.
Yeah, and that's an amazing anecdote to how you really stepped boldly into the industry. You didn't know anyone, but very quickly people knew you. And that's huge. And I've learned also in sales, like it's so important to leave people feeling better than when you found them, because they're not going to remember what you do or what you say or even really your product. It's about how you make them feel.
100%.
So that when they need the furniture, when they need the design, you are top of mind.
Yes.
And that you are that solution.
Positioning yourself as the solution to their problem.
Exactly.
Totally.
It's huge. I feel like a moment for me that has been incredible, the podcast itself. Like people are like, how's the podcast? That's what they lead with. And honestly, I forget I have a podcast a lot of the times, but that means it's doing its job. And a specific example of how my social media and a couple of events that we've had really was a positive impact was the tennis party. So
Yes.
my sister is amazing and she has a drone. So we created some really amazing fun content, but we are starting to be known for our tennis parties. And then this random, not super random, but this woman who works at Red Thread came up to me and said, "Oh my gosh, you're LilyGrace. I saw that you had a tennis league party. Can we do that for our industry event?" And I was like, well, it was a personal fun housewarming party, but yeah, we're going to do it again, our 3rd annual tennis party. I didn't even know her, but she knew me because of the tennis party. So
I've been approached.
Yes.
People ask me like, "Oh, what was that? Can I come to the next one?" Absolutely. About this tennis party.
Yes, but it's just a silly, fun example of how creating a branding story online and then transferring that into real life in person can really create a moment of connection and just set you apart from the rest.
Yeah, I mean, we were just authentically hanging out.
Yeah.
It was so fun.
Being fabulous. It was basically like the Vogue Olympics.
Yes.
We played for about 5 minutes and took a bunch of content.
We did some sweating. My tennis arm was sore the next day.
Yeah, exactly. But it's just a really amazing way to not only brand yourself online, but then bring that into real life, which is what we're going to be going through in the course.
Mm-hmm.
And I think also the course itself is called The Road to Influence. We really are training you and teaching you tools and tactics to dig deeper to then create authentic influence. And do you want to dive into that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we go through a lot of applicable examples, and I think one of the most valuable things that we are giving to this world now is a branding workbook. So at the end of the course, we've actually included real exercises. So you can take out your pencil, take out a notebook, print out the workbook, whatever you feel comfortable with, and answer questions, fill out exercises like you're back in school that will give you things that you can take away and actually do. Really put out into the world to identify who you are, how you want to show up, ways to interact with other people, how you network, all sorts of things in that kind of range. And it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
We've created intentionally a very multimedia course where you're hearing our voices, you're seeing our faces, you're reading words, you're putting pen to paper. It's engaging, and that was a big goal for us. No one likes a boring class.
Yeah, exactly. We wanted to create a really dynamic course, and Sammy and her amazing graphic design skills keeps it very fun and fresh and very editorial. So we're excited about the visuals as well as the audio and the video and all of the rest of it. So that's super exciting, and I'm just going to share a little teaser. So one of my favorite exercises that we start with is showing your receipts, which is huge. So we talk about values, and it's basically like a therapy session with yourself. Digging deep and understanding what your main core values are is huge into telling then an authentic story to create a brand narrative. And the values and showing your receipts is all about looking how you spend your time and your money, and that is going to be so real, because you could be like, oh, I value fitness or I value family, but maybe you're spending all of your time doing the total opposite of that and all of your money on going out or traveling. So that's actually what you value, is maybe fun and travel. So are your blocks of time and your spending habits reflecting your values? And this is going to be one of the exercises in the course, which we're excited about. Another thing that I wanted to ask you was a pivotal moment where you maybe made a mistake when it came to your personal brand, and then you were like, oh my gosh, this is actually such an important thing to focus on.
Lessons learned. It's a good question. I have to think about it.
Me too.
Yeah. So when I first started HOK, maybe about a year in, I went on a factory tour to the Bentley Mills carpet factory, and it was so cool.
That's so cool.
Yes, and so I'd kind of been building up my personal brand on Instagram, slowly, and then I made a great reel at the Bentley Mills tour, and I was just kind of on this roll, and then all of a sudden, it was too much. It was just a lot to maintain, posting once a week, posting on my story, I was completely overwhelmed. And I didn't find that it was really helpful for me at that moment. Like, I was finding that the content that I was making, Bentley Mills was pretty interesting because I talked about how carpet is made. So I actually walked through the carpet factory with everyone, and that reel was engaging and it had something valuable. It was educational. Right. But the next reel that I made was come with me to Steelcase's party, the annual party, and I had fun at the party. And at the party, I made valuable connections. But my reel was not valuable. My reel was just, look how pretty this is. Look at the drinks we had. Look at the, girls having fun. Great. That was not valuable content. And I was just stuck in this rut where I was like, oh, I'm making this content. It's not doing anything. So I stopped. I stopped making content on my Instagram. And instead, I focused that time back into showing up at events in person.
Love.
Which, for my personal brand, that had a higher value add than what I was doing on Instagram.
Oh, I love that story. And it's so true. A couple things there. I feel like we can all get stuck in this rut of like social media being me, a personal diary of our real highlights in our life. But it's so important if you are actually trying to be strategic and build a business and sell something, to really focus on what it's bringing to your audience.
Yeah.
And I get stuck in that rut too. I think for the honestly first 5 years of my LilyGrace Lifestyle Instagram, it was me, and like, look how pretty this is. And it was really about the aesthetic.
Yeah.
But until I really focused on, okay, it's not about me anymore. It's about the person I'm serving. That's when the narrative shifts, and that's when you get really amazing ideas.
It can be hard because
so hard.
On Instagram, you're almost in this like sound bubble of everyone else's highlight reel.
Yes.
You really are surrounded by everyone else's brightest moments, and the urge to add your moments is there.
Yeah.
But your Instagram is not your personal diary if it is your personal brand.
Right.
You have to choose.
Right. And that's the thing. Choosing is the hardest part for me, too. We were talking about this earlier today. Creating an umbrella brand is amazing, but when you have so many different aspects of it, you have to decide who you're serving. And honestly, before Report Agency, I didn't know. I had so many different facets, and I was kind of everywhere. It was telling my personal story, but it wasn't serving my audience, which was the piece that was missing. So this course, honestly, was for me too, which is exciting. And I think choosing, like a lot of times, like I have a personal Instagram as well. My personal Instagram, yep, that's the highlight reel. It's aesthetic, it's fun, it's fashion, it's travel. That's really my passions in life. But then it's like Report Agency is my personal brand and focusing on serving the audience. So you have to make that decision in the beginning. And also back to your Bentley Mills story, I was thinking as a rep in the industry and as a salesperson, figuring out who you want to take on these trips with you is huge. And that speaks to how you built your own personal brand, that you are so young in the industry and have been invited to these trips, showcases that you're really putting yourself out there and putting out the positive energy and being remembered by these people, which is huge because every time as a rep we're like, who do we want to take to Denmark this year? It's like, who makes a big impact, who's a decision maker, and who is going to show the leadership to really grow in the industry.
Thank you. That's a great compliment.
No, it's true.
Oh, I so appreciate that.
But it comes back to who you are as a person, but also that personal brand and leaving a positive impact on people.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this podcast episode. Without you, I would not be where I am today. If you haven't already, please subscribe, like, and follow the podcast. And if you haven't already checked out my vlog formatted videos, please do. There I show exclusive behind the scenes on my lifestyle, my routines, my travels, friends, business, relationships, etc. And it's the more laid back, low-key version of the life. Stay tuned for more, and thank you so much again, and let's get back into this amazing episode.
So it's interesting, building a personal brand when I haven't really been selling anything. This course is my first dive into being an entrepreneur.
Right.
And so before this, it's really been about awareness, that I'm here in the industry and that I'm a fun person to work with.
You are.
And that's kind of been what I wanted the world to know is, hey, like, I want to be here. I want to be speccing your furniture. I want to be, putting your fabric on this sofa because it's awesome. And I'm so excited to learn all of this and really taking in what the industry has to offer.
Yes.
Because the cool thing about interior design is that it is so much cheaper than people realize.
Totally.
I just took my first, and I'm taking the rest of the NCIDQ, and there's a lot more science behind it than I thought.
It's true. I feel like when it comes to building a personal brand, it really comes down to being brave, putting yourself out there, and not really even selling anything. Like at the beginning of my journey too, it's not really selling anything. It's just building that awareness and the confidence to show up in a space and be like, I'm Samantha, I'm LilyGrace, and this is who I am in my authentic, confident manner. And then from there, you can start to build trust with your connections and your network, and then take that to build into an offer, whether it be a course or interior design or a product. That's really how it starts.
Yeah. It's funny too, like a huge hurdle for me in our course was getting comfortable in front of the camera.
Yes.
I mean, it was ridiculous. Our first session, I was like, my name is Samantha.
You've grown a lot since then.
Thank you.
Like,
I was completely reading off of a computer, like off screen. It looked like I was talking over here. If you're watching,
yes,
it's great, real fun. But that is part of branding too.
Yeah.
It's like getting comfortable being in the spotlight and being okay with that. And there's definitely a way to do it where you're not, like I said, like I was not super comfortable with the Instagram content I was making, and so I had to pivot.
Yeah.
But even still, like, you're putting yourself out there, exactly like you said. Like, you have to be brave.
Yeah. And it doesn't necessarily have to just be on social media and Instagram like what we're talking about. It's the medium of your choice. Like, for me, it's been a podcast and Instagram. But maybe you're really good in person, or maybe you're good with audio, and it becomes, like, your personal brand to pick up the phone and call people. Like, it doesn't have to be online only. I always say social media is like a supporting actor of your story and legitimizes you in this digital era that we live in, and we talk about that in the course as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one thing you do really well too is you diversify with email. And personally, I used email to raise money for the PMC.
Yes.
And in 2-3 weeks, I raised almost $3,000 just from emails. So, there's really power in your writing.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of people are beautiful writers, but maybe they're not the strongest public speakers or vice versa. So it's like really good to understand what your strong suit is, or something that you could get really good at, and just focusing in on that one thing. Like, a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, you're so good at presenting. I used to be so scared in high school. I did not want to talk. I was shaking. I was sweating. I said and like every other sentence. Even at the beginning of this podcast 6 years ago, it was like, and it was so embarrassing. But putting in the reps and understanding what you want to get good at and why is super important, and a part of telling your own story.
Definitely.
Yeah.
That's why our first chapters and exercises in the course is so important. Understanding who you are, what you value.
Yeah.
It guides you.
It's deep.
Yeah.
It became a lot deeper than we expected, I think, but it's been our own personal journey too of like understanding how we build a brand. So it's been amazing to like put that into the world. And we're going to do a fun little lightning round of questions. Number 1, who is your favorite podcaster?
Mel Robbins.
Yes.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Let them.
Yes, let them. Recently, one of her podcasts pulled me out of kind of this deep slump that I was in. I was just very overwhelmed with what's going on in the world, all over the world. And I was overwhelmed by work. I was going through something tough at work, and I was feeling like it was all my fault, even when it wasn't. And I was just feeling the pressure, and I listened to one of her recent podcasts, and it totally pulled me out. I really understood from it and was able to take away how to use your mind, in a different way. was really beautiful.
Like a mindset shift. Is that the one that you sent me?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love it. Mel Robbins is amazing.
She is.
And based here in Boston and New England, which is fabulous.
We love a New Englander.
Yes, I would say mine is Diary of a CEO, and it has been for a while. But just the guests he has on and the questions he asks and the pace of the show and just really studying how he's become so successful has really helped me shape my podcast and my interviews as well. But also just the information is so dense and science-based and real, and I'm just like addicted to like all of it.
I don't know any other long form content creator who can make like 2-3 hour videos.
I know.
And like I am
not bored.
Yeah, I have eyes on the screen.
Yes.
Like, I'm watching his podcast.
Literally, he is so good at creating that story. And a lot of actually the research in our course came from his show and a lot of these podcasts that we talk about, which is amazing. Okay, what is a hobby that you're really loving right now that could be a part of your personal brand?
Okay, so I literally have on my dating app asked me about my hobbies because they're all over the place. So let's see. Right now I'm really into knitting. Yes. I'm knitting a vintage sweater pattern that I like thrifted everything. I thrifted the needles, the pattern, the yarn, all of it. And then I've also been really into cycling because I'm training for the Pan Mass, which is, for those of you who don't know, it's a 186-mile ride over 2 days to raise money for the Dana-Farber Cancer Research Institute here in Boston. So that'll be in August. And I'll be fundraising through October, so it's great. My minimum goal is about $6,000.
Amazing.
So it's going to be awesome. I'm hoping to exceed. Gosh, what else? I've been sewing recently. I've just been trying to stay in like a really creative headspace. My goal for 2025 was to bring positivity and light into the world. And so I feel like all of these things are kind of coming together to my personal brand as a maker in the world, and as a generator of positivity and kindness.
I could totally see that for you.
Thank you.
That's why we're friends. I love that. I feel like for me, hobbies I'm really into right now, definitely fitness. Yoga is huge for me. Every time I learn something stressful or am feeling overwhelmed, I'm like, I need to be on my mat right now. And hot yoga has really helped me through that. Yes. And also, I would say getting back into painting and dancing is something that my soul's been calling me to. I grew up doing both, and I'm actually renting a studio this week and just literally dancing because I haven't done that by myself in so long. I've been to classes, but it's nice to just improv and kind of get it out of me. So it's been a very healing thing as well. So that's
amazing. I had no idea.
Fun. Yeah. Fun fact. Okay. What is your biggest branding pet peeve?
Good question.
It's a hard one.
It is.
I'm trying to think of like brands that I'm like, oh, that needs help. Or something that is like...
Are we talking about in person or social media?
I think just overall branding. Like I'm thinking of right now like people, like big people like Taylor Swift or like Nike or Coca-Cola. Like I'm thinking big brands right now for some reason.
Big brands, my biggest pet peeve is not walking the walk.
I like that.
You know, in our industry of design, we spend a lot of time making sure companies aren't greenwashing.
Yes.
And generally, as a consumer, I try to be mindful of my purchases, that whatever I'm buying, whatever someone's influencing me about, those people are, talking the talk and walking the walk.
Yes. Okay. I like that a lot. Just that could be for people, for big brands, for big companies, for anything.
Yeah.
I was going to say something similar, like lack of integrity to your brand. It's like you can say, I'm sustainable, or if someone comes off as like, I'm a good, person to plan something, but then if they don't follow through and there's no action behind the words, that's a lack of integrity for me.
Definitely.
And it comes down to the person, to the consumer, to the big company as a whole. But I feel like that's part of like culture as well in big companies. Like, are you following through with what you say you're going to do?
Definitely.
It's huge. I love that. And what would you say is a brand that you are just totally obsessed with?
Ooh.
I can give mine.
Yeah, give yours. I have to think about it.
Vogue. As the book sits right in front of me. But just the essence of it and the graphics and the text, and I really feel like my whole life is just like a Vogue magazine in my head. I'm just like, oh, how can I be like at that level? It's just like totally like top tier, top shelf.
Who would I think there's a podcaster that does a really good job with her brand. She does the psychology of your 20s.
Oh yeah, you sent me that.
Yeah, I really like how loyal she is to serving her audience. She's very authentic over her Instagram and in her podcast. And she does a good job of talking about her real life in a way that's very accessible. I feel like with her, I have a strong parasocial relationship.
Yes.
Where I feel like she's my friend. I don't really know her. She's done a very good job.
I like that. Okay. Oh my gosh. Okay. And then for future you, how do you see your brand evolving? Like, what is the end goal? Like, actually, I think it was Roy Vaden asked the question, what does your future bio say? Whether it be on LinkedIn, on your website, on Instagram, who is that person? That's a deep question.
All right, how far in the future are we thinking?
Maybe, say, 10 years from now.
All right. I would like my NCIDQ certification this year.
Certified.
Yeah, I would like to be certified, pass all the exams. So my title would be interior designer. If anyone listening doesn't know, you technically, legally can't call yourself an interior designer until you've passed the NCIDQ.
Yeah.
So I'd like that. I'd like to have a diverse portfolio. And I'm going to leave the door open to what that portfolio is filled with. But I'd like to be engaged in my industry in a way that gives back. I'd like to be engaged with the world in a way that gives back. And I'd like to be doing something creative.
Oh.
And I think if I could fill those three categories in a way that sustained my soul at the same time as building my brand and awareness about who I am, I'd be really proud of that progress.
I love that. That's beautiful. Amazing. I feel like for me, it would be growing this audience and serving millions of people. And eventually, I would like to write a book and do a lot of public speaking and just influence people in a really positive way, whether that be through furniture or the podcast, and just continue to be that connector and networker that can really rise people up along with me.
You're on that journey. You're definitely on that path.
I feel like it's fun, and like we were talking about before, it's our passion project. Like we're doing this on top of everything else that we're doing, but it's really because it fills our soul.
Yeah, it's been really fun.
Yeah.
And putting together those graphics, I cannot even tell you. I was having the time of my life.
Every time I looked at the document, I was like, jaw dropped, because you're utterly talented. And your depth of understanding art and design, like even the images that Samantha pulls once you buy the course and see, insane. Like I was like, she gets it. She gets it. It's a lot of deep meaning because it's the road to influence, but we have a lot of shoes and a lot of fashion and a lot of deep imagery that makes you think.
Yeah,
which is so fun.
I tried.
Yes.
That's enough. I tried.
You tried really well. So what is your best piece of advice for someone feeling stuck on their branding journey? If they've listened to all of this and all of our fun stories, if they're feeling stuck, why should they buy this course?
I think our course asks you to look at branding in a different light.
Agreed.
It's not in the traditional way that you would typically think about a brand from, a marketing or sales book.
Right.
We're really taking kind of this macro, micro lens and looking at you as a human being, what you have to offer and the whole world and what they have to gain from what you have to offer, and asking you to kind of view this in that way.
Yeah.
And it's just a different lens that I feel like could really help people understand where they need to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, if you're stuck, sometimes just taking that step, that first initial, like, I've decided I'm going to make a change.
Yeah.
That's enough.
Totally.
Because that's going to snowball. That one decision, that one day. You know, you made a decision one day to start a podcast.
Yeah.
And that has snowballed
Yeah.
into this amazing career. And I hope that our course can be that first step for someone where they've decided, you know what, I'm just going to trust myself. I'm going to invest in myself. I'm going to make a change today. And they're going to look back 5 years from now and be, oh my God, I'm so glad I did that.
Yes.
That would make me so happy.
If we can do that for one person, my heart would be full.
Oh yeah. That would serve the purpose of the time I put into this course.
Yes, it's so true. And it's really a psychology-backed approach to branding and understanding yourself. It's a lot deeper than just putting a logo and a label on what you do. That's the, external fun part of it. But creating a company and creating a brand isn't just about picking colors and a cute logo.
Oh, yeah, I don't think we even bring up logos.
No, we barely came up with our own logo. But it's true, and it's the psychology behind why people engage with you over anyone else, because the world is so noisy and so many different things pulling our attention, but it's like, why are people coming to you specifically, and why do people remember you?
Yeah.
And it's not just a name, it's not just a slogan, it's not just a color, it's how you make them feel. So I feel like that psychology and the science behind all of the tactics and tricks that we share in the course is like the fun part and the really deep and meaningful part. It kind of feels like therapy, actually. Yeah,
in a lot of ways. Saying that.
This feels like therapy.
It does.
It's like great though. I mean, good therapy. We are not therapists, but we are in therapy. So, if you liked hearing all of the behind the scenes and the little sneak peeks that we teased out with you, there are a few different ways that you can find us and buy our course. So, Sammy, do you want to share what our Instagram is?
Yes, so we are at Brand Ed Course on Instagram. Brand_ED_course.
Yes, so go follow us on there. Send us a DM of your biggest branding challenge right now, and we will reply. And the course launches April 2025. And if you want to get on that wait list to get your exclusive offer, go to www.lilygraceyork.com/branded to join the wait list, and you will be sent the course with your first VIP deal, and then you can share that link with as many friends as you want. And if you are the first to get the course, it will be so exciting. Please tag us and reach out to us. There'll also be a WhatsApp group and community to stay in touch with like-minded individuals, and maybe eventually even meetups.
Yeah, we're definitely thinking about engaging people in person. If you're here in Boston, potentially in New York.
Yes.
We'll see how that builds.
I love it, and it's an amazing opportunity to connect with people around the world.
Yeah.
Who knows where this will go, but eventually I'd love to do like a Brand Ed retreat even.
You're speaking my language!
And stay tuned because we're coming out with a workbook as well. The course itself comes with a digital workbook that you can work through on your own pace with the modules and the chapters, but eventually we're going to have a printed version.
Yeah, and the printed version will probably include some additional exercises that we get to generate based on your feedback on the course.
Yes, and this is all sponsored by Report Agency, which is super exciting, all about building brand strategies to bring you to the next level of success and help you really just reach your goals in life. So we're so happy that you joined us to listen to our story today and what we are launching. So stay tuned. I cannot wait.
Me too. See you guys in our course.
Yay, so exciting.